Indigenous languages in the policy. So now the question comes, what is the status of indigenous languages in the language policy of Pakistan? Please remember that Pakistan does not have any written language policy per se, but that does not mean that it does not have a language policy. The language policy is very much there in terms of the declarations by the government and the functions that have been ascribed to different languages. Now, what does the Constitution say? The Constitution of 1973 gives provinces the autonomy to choose their own languages and ascribe them whatever functions they would like them to perform. The provinces are also allowed to revitalize and strengthen their own languages. However, this should not be done in opposition to the national language. So what we are saying over here is that yes, they might use their languages as they would like to, but the national language, that is Urdu, must retain its power in the sense that everyone must learn it through education. So, interestingly, although this provincial autonomy was given to yet very few people actually did something in terms of enabling their own indigenous population to use their languages in education, for instance. So we have only one province, Sindh in this case, that uses Sindhi, for instance, beyond primary level. Otherwise, there are provinces that somehow do use other languages in lower classes, but then they make a shift towards Urdu. And interestingly, when we talk about Pashto and Brahui at a certain point in the 1990s, some of the activists prepared several materials related to education, textbooks, dictionaries, and the government declared that they would use local languages in schools. However, when it was introduced in 1990, only in 1992 this was taken back, and the provinces shifted to Urdu medium of instruction again. The thing is that what happens is that when your own language is considered lower in relation to a dominant language, then people want to learn that dominant language to access the power and privilege of the speakers of the dominant language. Since the center was all about Urdu, so the provinces voluntarily did not choose their own provincial languages for higher functioning of the government or in their education, and they shifted to Urdu. So, low linguistic status of indigenous languages does infuse a sense of low esteem, and some would say a sense of shame in one's own linguistic identity. So what you would do is either not speak your own regional or indigenous language, or you would try to hide it or to repress it by using a dominant language rather than your own indigenous language. So that is the case why you might come across several educated people who choose that their children do not learn their regional language. They try to make a shift away from their communities, not only communities, but also a shift away from the language of their communities. So the thing to be kept in mind then, that when low status is ascribed to a certain language within the language policy, it has effect several effects on the individual choices that people make regarding their education or where they live and who do they connect with. All this is affected by the language policy.